What's up, vetters? Patrick here with Vetted. Today, we're talking about this.
Is still out on just how fast and how far the bombshell Age of Disclosure documentary moves the needle on UFO disclosure. But according to a new report, we may be closer than you think. Journalist Michael Schellenberger published an article today quoting a senior advisor to Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Marco Rubio, who says, quote, "We are headed toward a massive disclosure."
There's a show that's come out, it's called The Age of Disclosure.
Yeah.
Okay, I know everyone probably, right? Everyone asks you about it?
Sure. It was an interview that was done almost like maybe 3 or 4 years ago when I was in the Senate.
Right.
So it wasn't recent. So I was describing what people had said to me, not things that I have firsthand knowledge of in that regard. A little bit of selective editing, but it's okay because, you know, you're trying to sell a show there.
All right, vetters, please hit that like button. That really helps out the videos. And today I deserve it because I worked really hard on today's video, y'all, as you'll see. And please, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button, y'all. All right, vetters, so what is this video about today? Well, it's effing bonkers because as I started to go through this video, the spider web just got bigger. We've got a lot to cover, so let's just jump right into this. But essentially, what has happened is Marco Rubio just came out in a bombshell interview on Fox News, basically throwing shade at the Age of Disclosure and how they kind of, misused and, deceptively edited his interview that he filmed years ago into this new movie. And then today, I'm going to show you how they're doing it in interviews too, because I'm going to be showing a lot of clips of Dan Farah on Joe Rogan and all the times he mentioned Rubio. Again, touting him as the one. I mean, check out how many times Dan Farah mentions Rubio on Joe Rogan.
Rubio, 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 Rubio.
Yeah, okay, we've got a lot to cover. And not just that, but recently, Michael Schellenberger, more on him later in this video, he came out with a report basically saying that, Trump's going to be coming out soon to say something.
Is still out on just how fast and how far the bombshell Age of Disclosure documentary moves the needle on UFO disclosure. But according to a new report, we may be closer than you think. Journalist Michael Schellenberger published an article today quoting a senior advisor to Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Marco Rubio, who says, quote, "We are headed toward a massive disclosure." Now, just when that might happen, it remains vague, but it does reflect the sentiment of the moment.
When that might happen remains vague. Massive disclosure. Yeah. Now you know why I use the words bombshell so much, y'all. I use it ironically, right? It's just, it's my way of, throwing shade back at the community and what people come out and say in this community. The ridiculousness of it all, right? The people are constantly coming out, disclosures coming soon, coming soon, coming. That's why I use it. It's ironically, well, for a couple of other reasons that I can't really get into right now, but that's a big one. But that's neither here nor there. And to be honest, I kind of like using bombshell at this point. But yeah, that's really the reason, because of things like this. All right, so let's keep going.
Rubio was by far the most senior official who went on the record, on camera, demanding answers. And the documentary wasn't the first time that he's voiced his concern about this.
Some of these people still work in the government. And frankly, a lot of them are very fearful of their jobs, fearful of their clearances, fearful of their career. And some, frankly, are fearful of harm coming to them.
And again, Rubio has even addressed these comments. Again, he's repeating back what people told him. Don't worry, we're going to get to that Fox News interview so you can hear Rubio's own words. But let's continue with this just to lay a little bit of a foundation.
It is not just government employees who are in the know. Rubio believes the U.S. government has handed over these UFOs, these spacecraft that they have found, to private military contractors. He says those contractors know more about these crafts than the U.S. government. National security risk? Sure sounds like it could be.
Does Rubio really believe that? We'll find out in a moment.
So no less than the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, went on camera in this documentary saying publicly that the U.S. government has recovered alien technology from non-human sources and is currently working to reverse engineer it. That's pretty incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be with you, Elizabeth. It's already a historic moment. I mean, we've never had anybody at Rubio's level. And keep in mind, Rubio is also the National Security Advisor. The last time you had the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor as the same person was Henry Kissinger between 1973 and 1975. Rubio is, arguably number 3, although the State Department is number 1 in foreign policy after the president. Elizabeth, I think what this all means is that the president needs to address this issue. He needs to speak directly to the American people and explain what's going on here. There is conflicting messages.
You see, this is kind of what's happening, as I'm going to prove in this video, is that they're using Rubio's position now as if he had that position when he said those things. And if he still believes those things. Again, wait till you hear the stuff Dan Farah said on Joe Rogan, that in retrospect, after hearing out of Rubio's own mouth, this is crazy, right? So let's continue.
You have the president himself, the vice president, the director of national intelligence, the Secretary of State going further than any of them, and agreeing to even participate in this movie.
Yeah.
Is itself a major statement. So I think, look, there's conflicting messages. The president, I think, needs finally to address this issue.
I mean, the conflicting messages part from Schellenberger, I agree with, right? But again, they keep mentioning Secretary of State Rubio interviewed in the Age of Disclosure. He wasn't Secretary of State yet, right? Or the National Security Advisor. But more on that. One more from this interview.
Yeah, look, I think they have to find a way to explain, at least a large percentage of it. I think everybody in the country, almost everybody in the country, would understand if there's certain information by the way it was collected or related to weapons programs that we would expect and want our government to keep secret. But if it's a government, by and for the people, and our Constitution is in effect, then we need to know what's going on here. And the amount of everybody agrees there's a lot of disinformation and misinformation. There's not agreement on which is which. It ultimately, it's arrived at this moment that it's just got to be up to the president of the United States to finally address this issue. I think he will be asked about it in the days and weeks to come. And I think I think we saw in the Epstein files, people are not going to let go of this. They really want answers, because I think at a certain point, the speculation is boring when we know that our leaders actually do know what's going on, and have not yet shared that information with us.
And when you had the Secretary of State confirming that there's something going on, or at least saying that there's something going on, yeah.
Yeah, Elizabeth Vargas, I hear you, right. And again, I agree with Schellenberger when he says there's conflicting statements. Yeah, there is, right? And Schellenberger did respond to all of this. I've got a clip of that at the very end, because as I was making this video, he responded. So make sure to stay tuned to the very end for his statement on all of this. Now, let's move to Marco Rubio's bombshell interview on Fox News, because this interview right here has created, honestly, so much drama, trauma, everybody's talking about this in the UFO community, because everyone had propped up Rubio, right, as the biggest voice, honestly, from the Age of Disclosure. And now, listen to what he says here.
I want to start this out with a fun question, because there are really serious issues involving national security, peace around the globe. Yeah. I mean, you're at the highest level of discussions. And we're going to get into a lot of the hot spots and success and all that. But I got to ask you, there's a show that's come out. It's called The Age of Disclosure. Yeah. Okay, I know everyone probably, right? Everyone asks you about it? Sure. It's a new documentary. We had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities. It's not ours. And presidents operate on a need-to-know basis. Yeah. Okay, that is...
So a couple points on it. First of all, I'm not disavowing that. It was an interview that was done almost maybe 3 or 4 years ago when I was in the Senate.
Right.
So it wasn't recent. The second point I would make, I was describing the allegations that people have come forward with. I have people that came forward to us. You know, some of these people were Navy pilots, admirals, generals, whatever, that would come forward and say, that there were programs in the U.S. government that not even presidents were made aware of. So I was describing what people had said to me, not things that I have firsthand knowledge of in that regard. A little bit of selective editing, but it's okay because, you know, you're trying to sell a show there. But the fundamental comments, I haven't seen it, but the clips I've seen and people have shown me are fundamentally true. And that is, there are things, we know this has been documented. There have been things that fly over the airspace, restricted airspace, be it where we're conducting military exercises or the like, and everyone in the government says they're not ours. And so what I worry most about, just me personally, is that some adversary, another country, for example, has developed some asymmetric capability for surveillance or the like that we just are not prepared for. You know, we're looking for missiles and fighter jets, and they're coming at us with drones and balloons. Yeah. I remember, you know, when NORAD turned on the radars and started looking for balloons, all of a sudden they spotted a bunch of balloons flying overhead. And 90% of them were innocent, you know, things. A couple of them were Chinese. And so, but we never look for balloons because our radars aren't trained for that. So that really was the point I was trying to drive at. I can't comment on the rest of the documentary. It has, as I said, claims from people that were former admirals, naval fighters, people with high clearances in government. Some of them are pretty spectacular claims. I'm not calling these people liars. I don't have independent knowledge that what they're saying is true. Mm-hmm. The one observation I had is we had people that did very important jobs in the U.S. government who are saying these things. So we have people with very high jobs in the U.S. government that are either A, liars, B, crazy, or C, telling the truth. And two of those three options are not good.
But I don't know the answer.
I don't know the answer. I don't have any point of, you know, I don't want to call them liars. I just don't have any independent way to verify everything they said.
I mean, Hannity starts it off with, you know, let me ask you a fun question, right? Again, people think, oh, they're taking it so seriously. They're not really. I mean, they are, but they're not, right? This is a 20-minute interview with Rubio on Sean Hannity's show, Fox News. They talk about it for the first 2 minutes, and then they really get into the stuff, right? So they just get that out of the way and then move on.
Here's the problem with vetting people. You can't have a perfect vet no matter who that person is for a couple reasons. The first is you can only vet information that exists, right? So it is possible that in many cases, there are things about these people you just don't know, no matter how much you vet them. The second thing you can't vet, you can vet what people have done in the past. You can't vet what people might do in the future.
And Rubio is clearly stating here that they selectively edited his stuff, but he gets it. It's just, you know, it's to make money on a movie. That's what he thinks, right? He thinks what he said was taken out of context, and he was just repeating what other people had told him. Doesn't really believe this stuff. Although he agrees there are things flying around what we don't know that we need to find out. But in no way is he saying all the things that people are saying he said. Even if he said it, he's sort of regurgitating what other people had told him, but then they cut that part out and only used, right, his term. Instead, if I said, my friend said, and then I quoted, and then you just cut that and you took out the my friend said part, you'd think I said it, right? And that's what's happening here. And this is kind of bonkers, to be honest with you. I don't know how Age of Disclosure recovers from this. I'm assuming everyone's going to jump down Rubio's throat now. He was their hero, and now he'll be the enemy. What do you mean doesn't know? What do you mean this? What do you mean that? What do you know, it's not looking good, because there's been a lot of problems with the Age of Disclosure and how it's been taken, right? Essentially, because Rubio's not the only one to come out and say, this was selectively edited. I recently did a video about George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell and their latest weaponized episode. That video's gone viral for vetted, right? It's almost at 200,000 views. But here's a compilation that I played at the very beginning of that video. Okay, I'm going to put a link down below. Go check out the full video. It's well worth it. But listen to what Jeremy and George said about the Age of Disclosure.
Now, of course, I've got some bones to pick with the movie on factual reality.
James Clapper is no friend of UFO research. When OSAP was trying to become a special access program, what's not been made public is he fought tooth and nail to kill it. Dave would have been a valuable addition to the movie. Why do you suppose he wasn't in it?
I do think that he has a difference of opinion. He really thinks everybody should just open up and say what they know. For example, He thinks that if Lou Elizondo was part of the legacy UFO program, that he should just say it. Go out on the limb and just say it. Yeah, I'm just going to say it, man. It didn't seem like it was lost in translation. It seemed like they wanted you to believe that ATIP, was correct, and the New York Times had received the $22 million that funded this whole study, and it just and it ran for that long. And that's just not true.
And I was glad to see Lou Elizondo and Jay Stratton on the same stage, even if they weren't being entirely truthful. But if you're making a movie and you're calling for disclosure and honesty, and we want to know the truth, tell us the truth, we can handle the truth, we want transparency, you got to live up to that standard too.
Yeah. All right. There's a lot of problems here with Age of Disclosure. How many other people did they selectively edit, right? How come all of these people from the Age of Disclosure who were in it, besides your top UFO personalities, haven't come out to back this stuff up? Do other people feel like Rubio? It's not like Rubio put out a press release, right? Because it's just a movie to him. It's just to make money, right? So he'll respond when he gets asked. But how many people will see that interview and know that? I mean, talk about putting a stick in the wheel spokes here on this, right? Like, honestly, and some of the things that Rubio said, I said in my interview, and we'll get into that more a little bit later. It says, I knew his stuff had been misconstrued. I included some of this in my review of the Age of Disclosure.
You have people who like Rubio, who found out what's going on,
right,
who think it is very urgent that the public get caught up and find out the base facts. Yeah. His biggest fear, clearly, is we are in a high-stakes technology race, a Cold War race, with adversarial nations like China to reverse engineer technology of non-human origin. And his fear, he literally says in the film, is that if we don't get our act together and take this more seriously as a country, we're going to wake up one day, we're going to find out the hard way that China got there. We won't know when or how, but to quote him, we will be screwed. And you could feel it. Like, I did all the interviews myself. I'm like this close to him. His chin buckled when he said it. He was dead serious and he was super concerned, and you could feel it.
And look, let's take a look at what Rubio is actually talking to Trump about.
I do want to say this is the most wonderful and magical time of the year. By that, of course, I'm referring to the college football playoffs. And I just want to say this as a point of personal privilege. And I'm a Florida Gator, but if the University of Miami gets screwed out of the college football playoffs after going 10-2 and beating Notre Dame, the whole thing should be scrapped, and you're going to have to take over it next year.
This is from a recent press conference, okay? This is the kind of stuff they're talking about. They're not talking about UFOs like everyone's making them out to be, right? That they care about this so much, and that's happening. The massive disclosure is coming, right? And mind you, that comes from an advisor to Rubio saying that. And then Rubio comes out and says that. But more on that advisor later, because what I uncovered, you're not going to believe. But stay tuned for that. That's coming later. Now, let's move on to this interview with Dan Farah. And like I showed you, he brought up Rubio more than anybody in his Joe Rogan interview. And every interview he goes on, Rubio is the guy. I mean, Rubio's saying it, Rubio, right? Secretary of State, National Security Advisor, second most powerful person in the world. No joke, Dan Farah said that. And then Rubio comes out and undercuts it. It's basically like when you were in school and you're like, maybe you lie to your friends, you say, yeah, I'm talking to this girl, we're going to be going out. And then people talk to the girl and like, I sent him one message, like, I said hi to him in the hallway. You know what I mean? It's like, this is basically what's happening.
They've been here a long time. They've been monitoring us a long time. But now we've evolved to be dangerous. And we're either through secret programs, their level, or we're about to be. And then that's when you get to a crossroad. So I think that's one of the things driving officials like Rubio and Rounds and Gillibrand and Jay Stratton to come out and say what they legally can, because it's a set of circumstances that the human population really needs to know about, and then it's become a humanitarian issue. How do we deal with this?
Right.
His chin buckled, huh? Well, sounds like that's not what he thinks at all, right? Maybe his chin was buckling for other reasons. Who knows? Again, it's just so bonkers, right? And again, this part that Dan Farah keeps mentioning, that Rubio saying we're in a secret race, arms race to reverse engineer alien tech, non-human tech. That's not true. That's not what Rubio thinks at all. And his stuff has absolutely been taken out of context. He's saying other people said that, but he has no way to verify it. Again, what I've been saying since the beginning about this, where's the proof? Age of Disclosure had a ton of claims, zero proof. And now people are going to be coming out of the woodworks to be like, this is all wrong. I didn't say that, or that's not what I meant, or you edited it selectively, Again, let's continue.
If we're holding back because we're worried that bad actors are going to get it, is China taking the same approach? Because I would imagine they're not.
They're not.
I would imagine they're full bore, full steam ahead.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems. Like
that's the same thing with a lot of other technology, right?
Oh, yeah. Rubio and Rounds and Gillibrand, 3 of the most senior leaders in our government, talk very openly about their concern about China and them getting ahead of us on reverse engineering this technology. Rubio says it keeps him up at night. Rounds very animatedly says in the film, do you think for 1 second that they wouldn't use this technology for their domination if they didn't think we had access to the same technology?
Again, it's just all been taken out of context. But again, I'm going to show you every single time that Dan Farah brought up on Joe Rogan Rubio as the platform to stand on. And now that platform's gone, right? Everyone's using Rubio as the guy. He's in the Age of Disclosure, Secretary of State. Oh my God. I mean, again, this is a clip from Rubio from Age of Disclosure that Age of Disclosure put on their own YouTube channel. So this is fair use, okay? Small little clip. This is the kind of stuff Rubio is saying.
We've had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, and it's not ours, and we don't know whose it is. That alone, just that statement alone, deserves inquiry.
And even that's being taken out of context. He literally says, we don't know where it's from. So what do you mean alien tech, non-human tech? He's never said, he's not, what are you talking, like, yes, he thinks something is flying around that we don't know what it is, but that's where he stops. They take it a step further. Yeah, we're in a race to reverse engineer the Rubio. Again, let's continue.
Amnesty is something that's gonna have to be figured out, because while it's hard for anyone to accept letting people off the hook for wrongdoings, right? It does seem like it's in the best interest of the bigger picture.
100%.
Because these people just aren't good. They have no incentive to come forward with what they've learned. And so to quote Rubio in the film, he says, look, this is not a endeavor to go and punish anyone, but we need to know what they learned.
Right.
And I think he's totally dead on. And,
Is he in favor of some sort of an amnesty program as well?
Yeah, he says on camera in the film, he's like, I'm not trying to punish anyone. I need to know what they learned, because taxpayers paid for this, and it's in our interest to know what's going on.
Keeps him up at night, huh? Again, in retrospect, all of this is super cringe, hearing this.
And what I think ultimately is going to have to happen, and I wouldn't be surprised, man, if it happens soon after the film comes out, I think a sitting president has to step to the microphone and say, definitively, humanity's not alone in the universe. We have recovered technology of non-human origin. So have other nations. There is a high-stakes secret Cold War race to reverse engineer this technology. We need to win this race, and the U.S. intends to lead in this new chapter. I think that needs to happen, like a level set of basic facts, and I really do think it will happen.
Well, if that is going to happen, I think Trump might be the only guy that's willing to do something crazy.
I think it's very likely that he does that. I know that he is aware of the film. I know he's aware of what people in his administration say.
Has he watched it? You know that?
He has not watched the film, but I know he's very aware of it. And I know that they are discussing internally how they're going to react to the film publicly. And I also know that he has very recently, tasked Tulsi Gabbard with getting to the bottom of the situation and finding out for him what he needs to know that he doesn't know.
Really?
Yeah. And as Rubio said in the film, Rubio says on camera, on the record, on the film, that this has been kept from sitting presidents. And he goes into detail on how that's been done and how it's the career bureaucrats in certain elements of the government that control this information and just wait presidents out and don't feel like they have a need to know.
Again, this is all based on if this is true, which Rubio isn't saying it is true. That's the whole point. He's speculating, right, about it. If this was true, yeah, this is what I would want, right? It's like, if I have a Ferrari, this is, the color I'm going to get. I don't have a Ferrari and I can't get one, right? That's where we're at with this. That, right? It's just bonkers.
Jay Stratton, who, ran the task force, he says on camera in my film that that Mnuchin, the Secretary of Treasury, asked for a briefing on the lay of the land because Trump asked him to get the briefing, and Trump had already known that the base facts that we're not alone in the universe, that there's been recovery of crashed craft, right? He knew those base facts, and he told Mnuchin that he was thinking about going public, and so Mnuchin reached out to Stratton to get a briefing, and he told Stratton that the reason he wanted the briefing is because he needed to be able to evaluate what the impact would be to the economy if the president decided to step to the mic and tell the world we're not alone. And Stratton tells the story on camera in the film, and I've heard a lot more about it off camera. So we know Trump contemplated doing this already. Now I think the release of this film and Rubio's involvement puts enough on the table that it makes it easier for him to do.
That's not what's said in the film, now that we've learned. He's basically saying, if this was true, this is how it would happen. But again, it's all being misconstrued and packaged completely differently. Just like you saw from Jeremy and George explaining, right, in their weaponized episode, it's like, it's sort of like the ends justify the means. So we believe in this. Let's edit this certain way. Let's send a certain message because this is what we need, right? It's so bonkers. I mean, this totally undercuts the credibility of the film, if you ask me. And now if people are going to start attacking Rubio, which they already are in the UFO community, when 2 seconds ago they were lifting him up and now he's just a big piece of lying shit, it's like the irony.
It's going to put pressure on the White House. People have never seen someone like Rubio step up and say what he says in the film.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about Rubio, you got to remember, he's also the national security advisor. And that's never happened in the history of the United States other than Henry Kissinger for 2 years. This guy's in a very powerful position, very influential position, and aware of a lot more than he was even when he was on the Senate Intelligence Committee as a senator.
Interesting. And also motivated and fascinated by it.
Not anymore, right? Now, what do you think Rubio was telling President Trump behind the scenes? The same thing, right? Like, again, nothing's going to come. President Trump is not coming out to say anything. He hasn't even seen the film. He's not coming out to say anything. They may look into declassifying some files, have some more hearings, but this massive disclosure that they keep talking about that's coming is not coming. It's coming from people that work for a lot of these senators and Congress people, their advisors and their, staff and these things, right? Again, stay with me for the end, because the last clip I'm going to show you of Dan Farah opened up a can of worms I wasn't ready for. And I don't know if you are either. But let's move on.
We started the Director of National Intelligence position so that the agencies would all share information and you would minimize the chance of intelligence gaps, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we threw tons of appropriated funds towards counterterrorism. We now spend more money on counterterrorism than we even need to. And his point was, he hopes it doesn't take something bad happening on this front, like China cracking this technology in a way we haven't and then using it against us, or non-human intelligent life taking an action that isn't favorable to us before we then throw resources towards it. And it's essentially the same thing Rubio said. They think we need to get ahead of this problem, not wait for it to happen and then react to it.
Again, not when he filmed this, right? This is all coming back to bite them in the ass. My question is, how many people will see this part of it, right? The film is out, the message is out. Are people going to realize this? Again, I brought this up in my review, right? The analogy I gave was, if you have a band, your first time playing, and you put out, right, flyers for your band, come see my band, and then you don't rehearse and people show up and you suck, Good luck. Was the UFO community ready for people to come in and investigate this? No. Now look, we weren't ready. We weren't ready for this. The UFO community is not ready for the scrutiny. And what's going to happen is they blame everyone else in the community. It's everyone else's fault, except the people making claims with no proof. Why don't we turn towards them? I keep saying that. Right? It's like I'm like a broken record here, y'all.
The fact that there's something in the human psyche that says I can't prepare for or wrap my head around something I haven't experienced yet.
Right.
And how that leads to strategic surprise because you're not preparing for something that can ultimately end up happening. And Rubio makes great examples. He says, we didn't think the Japanese could torpedo us at Pearl Harbor till they figured it out, and they did, right? We didn't think that terrorists were going to come here and learn how to fly commercial airplanes and use them in a terror attack until they did. And with this, he's like, we don't want strategic surprise to lead to a disaster on this front. We need to be ahead of it. And he very powerfully says that, often strategic surprise changes the course of human history.
Again, if this is true, Rubio is talking in like theory, right? He doesn't know what any of these countries have. And he does bring up a point about strategic surprise, but again, not in the way that Dan Farah sells it and not in the way that he edited it in the film. And remember when I said I caught it? Yeah, I caught this initially when this happened. I knew that when I saw the interview with Dan Farah and I saw the Age of Disclosure, that's not what Rubio was saying. If you listened closely, this is what I said in a recent video that I made. I'm going to put a link down below. It's my review of the Age of Disclosure. And I covered this. I already said it. So there's something that Dan Farah said, right after, talking about Marco Rubio. And I remember this part in the film where Marco Rubio's like, strategic surprise, right? We didn't think Japan could bomb Pearl Harbor. We didn't think this about another country, this, that, the other. Okay. And then they say, well, it's not China. It's not Russia. Okay, but you just said we thought that before and we were wrong many times. So it literally could be them. Again, another contradiction. In fact, Rubio's openly saying it could be China and it could be Russia. Yeah, you see, he's just talking about in general, right? And in fact, he thinks it could be China or Russia. And if we don't think it's them with their own technology, we're the ones that are going to be left in the dust. Not aliens, not any of that stuff. We can't be looking to the right when they're coming from the left. It almost feels like that's what they're trying to get us to do. Americans are trying to get us to look like, no, right? We need to be worried about what Russia and China are developing. Forget aliens. That's where the strategic surprise could come from. And all the examples he gave, I mean, it's like right there in your face. The contradiction is right there in your face.
But I had a lot of folks helping. The Senate Intelligence Committee and the Senate Armed Services Committee were extremely supportive. And, I really don't think I would have been able to pull off making the film I did if not for their help. And Rubio, when I started my process, was the vice chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. And he had already learned a lot about what has been hidden from Congress and thought that what I was doing was really the only way to bring it out, because none of these people on their own would go out on a limb by themselves and become subject to ridicule. They didn't want to be the one guy out there saying all this extraordinary stuff, right? Not only because there's this antiquated cultural stigma where they could be made fun of or their reputation could be damaged, but there's also this security system around the deeply hidden crash or shield program that for years has just targeted anyone who speaks up. And so what I basically put together was a way for them to safely do it and have strength in numbers and be arm in arm with, several dozen other people. And once Rubio leaned into that, I just started getting tremendous support from the Armed Services Committee and the Intelligence Committee.
Now, this part is interesting because I have a theory. Basically saying Rubio helped jumpstart this whole film and got people on board and this, that, and the other. Very interesting. You see, Dan Farah has been selling this, and other people in the film as well. He basically went and sold her, but hey, don't stand on your own and say this. Come together as a power of many, and then you won't feel left out. See, I think that strategy was used against him. Let's get all these people to come out, and then we can use each other, right? It's like they're endorsing each other. Rubio's endorsing Hal Puthoff. Rubio's endorsing Tim Gallaudet. Rubio's endorsing Lou Elizondo and all these people. Do you see what I'm saying? They actually were doing the opposite. And they tricked everybody. Maybe it was unintentional. Maybe their idea was to do that. But I have a feeling they used it against them, right? It's my opinion. That's my theory, right? It's not what we think.
And Rubio, going on the record, second most powerful guy in the world, arguably, saying that the presidents are kept out of the loop on this and that defense contractors have taken this over, and that he even says that every now and then advancements made get slipped into commercialized product that some defense contractors make a bunch of money on for their own best interest, not for the benefit of the nation and national security. Like, these are bombs dropped at the most credible level possible, and I think that because we've had all the leaks over the years, it's going to resonate with people. People are like, oh shit, all those things that have been slipping out over the years, it's real. And these guys are validating it.
And look, I'm not here to, I'm not here to throw shade at everything and be such a downer and a skeptic and a debunker and a cynic and this. It's like, I just can't avoid the truth, right? I have no feeling. To me, the truth is like fire or water. It has no friend. It has no enemies, right? I can't decide the truth, but I accept whatever the truth is. And in this case, the truth is this totally just, in my opinion, demolishes the Age of Disclosure, because now you wonder about everything in the film and how it was brought to you in a misleading way. That's the problem with doing the end justify the means, because you build a house on sand in the tide. And the moment that tide comes in, you're screwed, to quote Marco Rubio, right? It's like, that's why you just tell the truth. Be honest. We think this is happening based on this. Instead, they went with absolutes. They misedited. They misinformed. And they propped this up as being a certain thing. They got all these people together to sort of conform, right? And have this powerful testimony from all these over 30 different people, right? But it was the opposite. All these high-level people were used to sort of prop each other up to add credibility, not so that they could come out and speak because they were afraid, right? It's all in shambles. Rubio doesn't think that defense contractors have all this stuff. This is what was told to him by these people, right? Like, again, but don't worry. The last clip that I'm going to show you, again, the spider web that it brought out was just absolutely insane. It's like when you pull a weed out of the ground, you think it's a small little weed and it's just got this root. You're just like, what the? That's basically what happened. But we still have one more clip.
But I want to ask you, were there specifics when they talk about technology that was acquired that was then rolled into?
No one said it on the record. I was shocked when Rubio said that on camera when he went there, like clearly stating that. I mean, I think to word for word, I think he says, and every now and then an advancement gets made and gets commercialized, and some companies making a ton of money on it for their own interest.
But is there any susppersonic when you?
Yeah, no, I've heard suspicions.
Like what?
Like, how it has impacted hypersonic missiles. I've heard things about early days of fiber optics. I've heard things about night vision. Yeah. But no one would go on the record and say something definitive. The thing people were comfortable saying, and Rubio said, is that defense contractors have been in control of this over the decades. Congressional oversight has Congress has lost congressional oversight, and essentially these programs are just moving along and keeping it to themselves.
Again, but Rubio's not talking about alien tech here. This is the problem with all the different words they use. This is why they changed the words from UFOs and aliens and extraterrestrials to all these other words: non-human sentience, non-human intelligence, UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, unidentified anomalous. The reason they do all that is to confuse you, right? It's not we wanted to remove the stigma. No, you didn't. You just want to confuse people, because this industry thrives in the mystery. It's like sunlight to a plant. Right? It's like darkness to a mushroom. It thrives. If the moment light gets shine on it, or the moment, you find out the truth, it all crumbles. So you don't want to know either way. You always want it to be ambiguous, and you always want it to be mysterious, not one way or the other. And when things like this come out and we start to find out more truths, it just all falls apart. Take a look at the last clip that I've been teasing this entire time, because I'm about to unravel a thread. I don't know if you're ready for it.
So there's a guy, I'll give him a shout out, John Estridge, who was on the Senate Intelligence Committee staff. He was the senior staffer for Rubio. He was the guy who really led the charge on looking into this topic for Rubio and Warner on the Senate Intelligence Committee staff. He was extremely supportive to me behind the scenes. Helped vet people for me, helped send introductions my way, helped validate me with Rubio and rounds. Extremely helpful.
Help vet people for you, huh? So who's this guy, John Estridge, who Dan Farah's shouting out? Well, he was an advisor for Marco Rubio. Interesting. Remember when Schellenberger said he also had a Rubio advisor telling him massive disclosure was coming? So I started to think, is that the same guy? It's not, but it could be. So hang on, let me explain. So who is John Estridge? Well, this is him right here. And according to a local article in Ohio where John Estridge is from, he said this about himself. His day job from 2001 to 2018 was with the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the NGA, a combat support agency under the Department of Defense. The primary mission of the NGA is collecting, analyzing, and distributing geospatial intelligence in support of national security. It's one of the big 6 intel agencies, Estridge said. Estridge helped in global mapping and satellites, among many jobs, and was deployed to Afghanistan as a civilian. In his current job, Estridge wears several hats. In addition to advising Senators Blunt and Rubio, he helps as a budget monitor and makes 1 or 2 trips a year to Africa while serving on a committee to that nation. He said his position makes him the equivalent of a 2-star general. What? The NGA. Let's start pinning all these things that just got said here. You'll see what I mean. Let's keep going. Now, New York Post reporter Stephen Greenstreet, who personally I'm not a fan of, but the truth is the truth, okay? Because not many people talk about John Estridge, but he put up this tweet a while ago talking about John Estridge. And I dug into some of this, and a lot of it's true. John Estridge is in the acknowledgments section of Lou Elizondo's new UFO book, though Elizondo slightly misspells his name. Estridge will apparently be in James Fox's new UFO documentary, The Program, and is supposedly one of the 40 whistleblowers backing up David Grush's claims of alien space monsters. Estridge previously worked in the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the NGA, and Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the ODNI. In 2018, he became an advisor to the Senate Intelligence Committee, where he prepared senators like Marco Rubio for committee hearings and provided intelligence assessments. He now works for York Space Systems. So, look, I don't like Stephen Greenstreet call him space monsters. It's not. He's a debunker. He's a skeptic. Yeah, I'm a skeptic too, but I'm also open-minded about things, right? So, I hate to use his articles, but again, the truth is the truth, and this is just what I could find on John Estridge. And I can go look into all this stuff on my own and sort of back up some of this stuff. But it is interesting that he's claiming that he's one of David Grush's 40 whistleblowers. I found no evidence of that, but it does kind of make sense when you think about the NGA and David Grush's connection to the NGA. Now, I went and checked on John Estridge and his work history from the Greenstreet, Twitter post. And it's true. John Estridge does work for York Space Systems. And you may be asking, why is that important? Well, it's very important. Because you see, John Estridge also works for the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And you may be thinking, why is that important? Well, it's very important. Because of this. Remember this guy? Sean Kirkpatrick, head of AARO, former head of AARO? Well, check this out. In December 2023, Kirkpatrick stepped down as the director of AARO. In December 2023, Kirkpatrick joined the Oak Ridge National Laboratory as the Chief Technology Officer for Defense and Intelligence Programs. As further verified here, Pentagon's recently departed UFO chief Sean Kirkpatrick is now working for Oak Ridge National Laboratory, birthplace of the Manhattan Project that helped produce America's first nuclear weapons in the 1940s, he told Laura. Kirkpatrick is supporting ORNL, as its chief technology for national security programs. Why is that interesting, Patrick? Well, because so many people, when Kirkpatrick went to Oak Ridge, they were like, oh, he's working for Oak Ridge. He's working for the man, right? He's working for the man. Well, so is John Estridge, and he's advising Rubio, and he's helping with all this stuff. He could be one of David Grush's 40 witnesses, the NGA. This all connects, y'all. It all connects in such a weird way. What the F is going on? This John Estridge guy, who honestly, I think could actually be Schellenberger's source. Even though Schellenberger is selling it as a current advisor, I think it's possible it is John Estridge. But there's more. I'm told by a source that this document by John Estridge at National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the NGA, is the source and or inspiration of the supposed Immaculate Constellation secret UFO program. What? Okay, let's check this thing out. Looks pretty standard, just like a, presentation going through. Okay, yada yada. Course, weapons, system. Wait, what was that? General Clapper. The same General Clapper from the Age of Disclosure? Warfare systems of the future will increasingly depend on the information provided by NGA. NGA must be part of the process and fully engaged from the inception of acquisition programs. Geointelligence cannot be an afterthought. What? I'm going to put a link in the description if you want to go check that out. But is this the inspiration for Immaculate Constellation? And if you're wondering, what is Immaculate Constellation? Remember that same reporter, Michael Schellenberger, we've been talking about? Well, he actually broke the story about Immaculate Constellation. What?
Today's piece is about a new whistleblower who has come forward and has written a report. And this is somebody that is either in government or is a government contractor. I've interviewed this person multiple times in person. I've checked their credentials. They are who they say they are. They have written a report and provided it to members of Congress. And in that report, they claim that that the Pentagon is illegally withholding information from Congress about a secret UAP program. And that secret UAP program is considered a parent program of other programs, but it's called Immaculate Constellation.
And then when you look at where Immaculate Constellation came from, well, we found out. It was Matthew Brown, Jeremy Corbell, and George Knapp covered, right? This is all just what the F is going on. You see, in my opinion, I think this is just the mystery, the ambiguity. That's where it thrives. Like mushrooms in the dark, it thrives. I think that's what happens here. It's just all confused. They're all behind the scenes working together, right? There is no good, bad guys. It's a blurry line. It's a mess. It's gray. It's like, for disclosure, anti-disclosure. That's none of this is happening. This is all just weird. But look, according to John Estridge's employment history, he left being an advisor for Marco Rubio, right, in 2024, and that's when he went to work for York Space Systems as their vice president. He's working with Oak Ridge, right, which is also run by Battelle and the Department of Energy and all that. I mean, come on, again. You pretend to work for the cause when you're really just working against the cause. And he's behind the scenes throwing stuff out at people, right? Giving them information, giving them access, making sure Rubio gets access, and then making sure Dan Farah gets access to make the Age of Disclosure, right? And really push people forward. And as Dan Farah said, Rubio coming on board just was the first domino. It got so many other people involved, right? Was this done on purpose? Is that what's happening? Is this just all manipulation, right, by people, and especially John Estridge? I don't know. I'm just throwing out a theory, okay? Just an opinion. We're just talking here, y'all, right? The deeper I get in this well, the further away from the light I get, and it's starting to get a little scary, to be honest. And there's one more thing about John Estridge that I kind of find interesting, if true. You see, these documents leaked online, there was allegedly a text transcript between John Estridge and a defense contractor named Sean Weaver. Well, many people speculated that Sean Weaver was Jake Barber, right? And this is been confirmed nor denied, and I have no idea if these documents are true, but I will say after reading through them, which I'll put a link in the description so you can go read them yourself, I've messaged with Jake Barber, texted with him, and this guy Sean Weaver uses exact wording and phrasing that Jake Barber has used with me. I won't be specific because I want to keep that private, but this could be him. And there's nothing in here that's like crazy bad. Even if Jake Barber came out and said, yeah, that's me, I don't really see the big deal, to be honest. But it is interesting that John is talking to all these people, right? I don't know, especially when you look at parts of this text exchange, you hear things that Dan Farah has repeated on Joe Rogan, such as, we are at a crossroads position whereby members want to partner with industry and find the win-win way forward. You see, Dan Farah has used some of that same wording, especially in that Joe Rogan interview. By members, I mean numerous senators that know what is going on. You see, that's also things that Dan Farah has been parroting, right? And Dan Farah's already admitted that John Estridge immensely helped with the film, right? And what's also interesting is that if John Estridge is one of David Grush's 40 whistleblowers, remember, David Grush isn't in the Age of Disclosure. And if you go watch my video about Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp and what they covered, they explain that David Grush just has a different opinion about all this and didn't want to be in the film. What? Again, what the F is going on, man? Honestly, I'm as confused as ever about all of this. But one thing I do know, we're not getting the truth. That I'm certain of. And in fact, not only are we not getting the truth, it's not just by accident, it's on purpose. The gatekeepers that you think are holding this UFO legacy program behind the scenes and covering up all this stuff, I think the real gatekeepers are right in front of our eyes. And they're misdirecting us. Why? I don't know. But that's what I think's happening. And that's a little scary, which is why it's all a mess. So look, I'm going to put links down below to everything. Connect all the dots you want. Think whatever you want. It's up to you. It's your personal journey. Me personally, I think this is all bullshit. I still believe in the phenomena, of course. I think there's something going on. I firmly believe that. I just think these guys are full of shit. And look, Michael Schellenberger did respond to Marco Rubio's comments, right? Which again, have caused an absolute bombshell explosion in the UFO community, and everyone's backtracking, even him.
Hey everybody, it's Mike Schellenberger for Public. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told Fox News last night that the interview he gave for the new documentary film The Age of Disclosure about unidentified aerial phenomena was 3 or 4 years ago when I was in the Senate, and that I was describing what people had said to me, not things that I have firsthand knowledge of. Rubio described the pretty spectacular claims made by people with high clearances in government and said, I just don't have any independent way to verify everything they said. And Rubio said the film engaged in a little bit of selective editing, but it's okay because you know you're trying to sell a show there. Rubio also said, however, that I'm not disavowing what he said in the film, and as both Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, Rubio should have ways to either verify or debunk the spectacular claims made in the Age of Disclosure. If Rubio feels he lacks the power to verify the claims in the film, then he should explain why that would be. As National Security Advisor and Secretary of State, Rubio has unparalleled access to Special Access Program briefings, compartmented intelligence, and interagency assessments comprised of top secret and classified information. If Rubio cannot determine whether highly cleared officials are telling the truth or lying, then that raises questions as troubling as the ones around UAPs.
So look, I'll put a link in the description if you want to read the rest of what he put out and the rest of that video. You can watch it for yourself. Because he put an article. He's basically just reading his article in that video. So anyway, all links in the description. Go check it out for yourself. We'll see you guys on the next one. Remember, Vedas, heads on the swivel. Every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.
Hey, Patrick. My name is Chris. Longtime listener and follower. I witnessed something when I was a kid on the Jersey Shore with my cousin. We were laying on the shore at night, and we saw a vehicle of some sort, something come out of the water and shoot across the sky and go back right to the same area that it came out of. So ever since then, I've been very interested in UFOs. But there's a book series called Project Saucer, and the C is replaced with a K in Project, and it's by an author called W.A. Harbinson, Harbinson. Very interesting set of series of fiction, but it also has a lot of history in it. And I think you would be very interested in reading it if you haven't already. That's about it. Take care. Every day is every day, right? Take care.